Now, since we've already graphed all the way through section 2.3, 2.4 is just going to be review. It's just more practice of the same kind of questions. And so this unit has two parts. One part was how do you graph the square root of any function? That happened only in section 2.1. And then the rest of it was all about this graphing rational functions. Graphing rational functions a little bit more complicated than graphing a square root function. So we start step 0 by factoring. Does the top factor? Yes, it does. Ooh, but this is going to be nice. They added some extra interesting stuff. We have a non-permissible value. X can't equal 1. Does that factor cancel out? The way that it looks right now, the answer would be no, because there's no factors exactly the same. But have you ever seen what's happening right now before? We have a 1 minus x in our denominator. We have an x minus 1 in our numerator. What have we done in the past to simplify that? Yeah, we take out a negative 1. So I could say the same thing, keep the top the same, and factor out a negative out of the bottom. Then that factor is the same. And then, since these factors are the same, those cancel out. What does that mean for our equation? And I'm going to write it in green. We have a new equation which is x minus 4. What's left on the bottom? A negative. So we have to write negative 1. You can't just write a negative on the bottom. You have to write a negative 1. That negative 1 on the bottom is the same as multiplying by a negative 1. You could, if you wanted to, rewrite this as negative x plus 4. Or you could divide each thing by that negative 1 and get negative x plus 4. What does that tell us about our non-permissible value? Step 1, we have a hole. We have a hole at 1 comma somewhere. Where's the somewhere? 3. How do we know it's 3? We plug it into our new equation. And whenever you have a hole in your graph, you now go and graph the new equation and add the hole. So when we look at our new equation, it's no longer a rational graph. Do you know how to graph y equals negative x plus 4? Yes, it's a straight line. We don't have to do any more steps for this question. We can just go and graph that directly. Where did I get the 1 from? This, which one? This black one, this one, this one, this one, or the... Because our non-permissible value was 1. Okay? So because our non-permissible value is 1, at 1, we're either going to have a hole or a vertical asymptote. So the decision is, how do we know it's a hole at 1? It's because that factor canceled out. And then to figure out the 3, you plug the 1 into this new green equation after it's simplified and say, what happens when I plug in 1? I would get y equals 3. And so that's the place of the hole. When I go to graph this now, since that green equation is something I know how to graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have a y-intercept at 0, 4, a slope of negative 1. Tells me I'd have an x-intercept at 4, 0. I have a hole at 1, 3. So we draw the line like normal, just add a hole in it or a point of discontinuity. So try question number 3. Oh, does it say state the domain? We'll do that quick then. And then you can yes, state the domain and range. So for our green graph, the domain is everything except x can't equal 1. But x can equal everything else. Looking at our range, we only have one value that's not included in our range, which is 3. But y could be everything else.